يسعدني أيضا أن أنا أقدم أول سبيكر غني عن التعريف، الأستاذ دكتور سمير نعيم أسعد. هيكلمنا على الهرمونال كنترول اوف ابيتايت from basics to clinical practice. اتفضل يا أستاذ سمير.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Professor Fahmy, Professor Ashraf Talat. It's really a pleasure to be here as every year. Inshallah, يدامها بإذن الله. And I'm happy to give this presentation, and thank you very much for the invitation of Professor Talat. طبعا we cannot refuse his invitation. مش محتاج invitation. One of the House member, وبقية الزملاء الأستاذ سمير، الأستاذة مباهج، الأستاذة إيمان، كل الزملاء، مش عاوز أنسى حد من وحدة الميتابوليزم. Actually, these are my disclosures. Actually, the role of physics is very important to control the weight. So what you got a balance between the intake and the output. This is the role of physics. They apply for everybody. But there is a control in the brain which is controlling the fat, as you see. And this controller is sending effort signals to control the amount of fat by controlling the energy expenditure and the appetite. On the other hand, this controller is not working haphazard. It's having input also as well from the fat, sending input to the controller from the gut, from, of course, taste and smell and nutrients status. If you got a good smell, you'll eat a lot. This controller is present in the hypothalamus. You can see that on the left-hand side, this is the part called the appetite center, which is stimulating the appetite, NPY. NPY stimulates appetite. On the other hand, on the right side, the POMC or the MSH nuclear, these are the satiety center, which will inhibit the appetite. So there is a balance between both of them. And actually, you should remember that they contain receptors for insulin and leptin. Insulin is coming from the pancreas, and actually insulin is inhibiting the appetite, while leptin also is inhibiting the appetite. And they have got also receptors for Y2, for the GI peptide. I'll explain it later, inshallah. And the growth hormone secretagogue receptor for the ghrelin, as I will talk, inshallah, in a bit. But this center will send relay to another center in which serotonin is very important. And in the old days, you remember two drugs, sibutramine, which was available in Egypt, and locazerine, which is available abroad. Now they are obsolete because this serotonin drugs, they are having a lot of side effects. But recently, the MC4 neurons, they've got a new drug. So now they have discovered MC4 agonists. You remember MC34, they are relay for satiety. So if you use an agonist, you will inhibit the appetite. And this was studied 14 years ago for a oral drug, but it was found to be toxic. But recently, the one available is an injection form called setmelanotide. Setmelanotide is very powerful drug to inhibit the hunger and to maintain a weight loss of, even you can see here in this study, 50 kilograms. But this drug, this is a trade name of the drug, which is not available in Egypt. It's very expensive in the form of sub-Q injection, but it's only available for certain types of obesity, not for the common obesity, for the POMC deficiency, for PCSK1 deficiency, and leptin receptor deficiency. So you should remember this drug for a certain category of your patient, obese, child market obesity. And on the other hand, the story of leptin. You remember leptin was discovered in 1994, and it was thought that it is a revolution because it was called after the Greek name leptos, thin. It was thought to be a thinning hormone because this inhibits appetite, and it was thought this is the end of obesity. But unfortunately, and you see this best tab, this is the adipose tissues, and sorry. In the adipose tissue, you can see that the adipose tissue, they are secreting leptin. And leptin should have a negative effect on appetite, as I told you. This will help to patient to lose weight. But unfortunately, this is a mechanism of how the leptin will inhibit the appetite. But unfortunately, we found ourselves, this Professor Abbas and our group, that this was almost 20 years ago. We described that the leptin is high in patients with obesity. So why the leptin is high despite that the patients are still obese? Because there is the so-called leptin resistance. So please remember this term, leptin resistance. And leptin treatment has been also used only for very rare genetic deficiency and in lipodystrophy. You can see this boy with leptin deficiency is very, very rare because leptin is very high in most of the cases of obesity. It's very useful and also used in patients with lipodystrophy. And I guess we have seen a lot of lipodystrophy in your units, metabolic unit, as well as in endocrinology. But recently, leptin is approved for treatment of hypothalamic amenorrhea and also for anorexia nervosa. So remember, these are the two new indications for leptin treatment. But the more important is leptin resistance. How can you improve leptin resistance? And this is applicable because most of these drugs now are available. The GLP-1 analogs, I'll talk about in later, they inhibit the leptin resistance, so I improve the leptin. The oxytocin, remember oxytocin is coming from the posterior pituitary. It's thought about myometric contraction and milk and so on, but this is emotional hormone. And recently, it has been available as this form of subcutaneous injection as well as nasal insufflation, not yet in Egypt, for the control of appetite. Also, another peptide, the urogranulin and the metchloro, but the most important is the amylin. Present the number one, amylin, are now being used for treatment of obesity. I will show you some data. This is the oxytocin now available in not only sub-Q, but also in intranasal. Amylin derivative, which called, remember this name, cagrilintide, you can see that you can get a drop of about 12% weight loss, but now cagrilintide is associated with semaglutide and also run by the same company, Novo, because semaglutide is run by Novo. And this very effective drug called phase 2 trial, which diminishes hemoglobin A1C minus 2.4%, minus 2.4. So if you got a patient with 9.5, you can get to normal by this combination. It's still phase 2. Now let's go back to the controller, the gut. The gut is very important to control the appetite. So the gut is sending input to the hypothalamus in the form of inhibiting molecules like the PYY and GLP-1, also in stimulating molecule, the ghrelin. So the PYY and GLP-1 are inhibiting the appetite. Once you eat, the PYY should increase and the GLP-1 should increase to inhibit the appetite. And you can see that the PYY coming from inhibits the appetite center. But unfortunately, the drug used for this in the form of nasal insufflation has been halted because of side effects. But the GLP-1 is very important, very promising. And now we have been using liraglutide for weight loss in the dose of 3 milligrams. And you can see that it inhibits the sense of hunger, stimulates the satiety, and is very useful in the famous STEP program I'll show you. So the liraglutide will act. This is, remember, the POMC on the right side. This is satiety, and this is appetite center. The POMC actually is stimulated by liraglutide, while the NPY is inhibited by liraglutide. So liraglutide is very useful to increase satiety and diminish hunger. And this is a famous scale program, and you can see there is a dramatic change in the body weight. And I think most of you have used this drug to induce weight loss. And the main side effect of the GLP-1 molecule is the nausea, and if you eat slowly and take it before breakfast and increasing the dose gradually, you can avoid these side effects. Another molecule of the GLP-1 analog is the semaglutide. And semaglutide now is available in the usual dose, 1 milligram, is mainly for diabetes. And there is also weight control, but the weight control is more with the 2.4 milligram, which is not available yet in Egypt. You can see that in the STEP trial, they have got a marked change in the weight with the GLP-1. More recently is the GIP. You remember the gut is producing GLP-1, but also producing GIP. And if you can see that both of them, they stimulate insulin secretion and they diminish appetite. But the GIP does not diminish glucagon, This is another side effect. But what they found that if you use GIP receptor analog only, you'll get increased weight. This is a paradox. But if you use a dual agonist acting on the GIP and on the GLP-1, you can get this dual, you can get weight loss. And this is a famous drug, the tirzepatide, which is not available yet in Egypt, it's available abroad, is a famous surpass study. You can get down to 15% weight loss. This is a tremendous, huge reduction of the weight by using the GLP-1, GIP dual analog. Lastly, the ghrelin. The ghrelin, remember, comes from the stomach. And the ghrelin is the appetite-stimulating hormone. So whenever you are having fasting, like now, if you didn't have breakfast, your ghrelin is up. It stimulates you to eat. But, unfortunately, we thought that ghrelin is important for obesity, but actually not. You can see that ghrelin is low in patients with obesity. So ghrelin is low. So it's not the cause of increase. That's why the research on using ghrelin in clinical application is not very, very good. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, at the end, you can see that the hormones have got a lot in the treatment of obesity. Remember the oxytocin, remember the GLP-1 analog, remember the setmelanotide. All these are hormones which are controlling, and now they are available not only in basic science, but also in clinical application. And this is in addition to other drugs approved by the FDA, like the phentermine topiramate tablet and the bupropion natriol tablet, which are not available in Egypt. They are associated with a lot of suicidal tendency, depression, and tachycardia, but they are not available in Egypt now for many years. What you get in Egypt, you get the semaglutide, not the 2.4, you get the smaller dose, and liraglutide, 3 milligrams, applicable in our country. This rose is for you, for doctors taking care of patients with obesity. And actually, this bigger bouquet of marguerite is for the patients, because the patients are doing a lot of effort. Patients with obesity, they are doing a lot of effort to maintain their weight. And I'm quoting this cartoon. It's not my own, but this is from the net. A lady in a restaurant, and she's trying to do her best. So she is telling the waiter, I'm going to order a broiled skinless chicken breast for diet, but I want to bring some lasagna and garlic bread by mistake. So the appetite is still there. So if you use one of these drugs, this will stimulate the patient, and they help them in order not to bypass the diet, because it's very, very easy to bypass the diet. Food is very exciting for the human being. This is human nature. So if you go against human nature, you need something to help you. At the end, let me remind you that obesity is a major health problem. Lifestyle modification is still the hallmark for treatment and prevention. Prevention is very important, because you don't have to wait to be 120 kilograms. You have to do it early on. Multiple hormones, as I told, they are controlling the appetite. Leptin resistance should be addressed by the new drugs of leptin resistance, the GLP-1 and the amylin, as well as oxytocin. GLP-1 analogs, of course, have got a very evident role. I think there are different talks today and yesterday about GLP-1 and clinical application. And lastly, the MC4 agonist, the setmelanotide. They are only used in certain monogenic obesity, in very rare cases, because this is a very expensive drug, is not available in Egypt. And at the end, allow me to thank you, everybody, and for the nice invitation. And I hope you'll have a beautiful day today, inshallah. That's a very successful conference, bi'idhnillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran, Samir, for this very elegant, very updated lecture about a major problem, it's obesity. Thank you very much. لو في أسئلة هنخليها لآخر الجلسة يا جماعة.